A human's words have the power to directly influence the course of the future. Fortunately, technology has given us the ability to not only recall speeches said before, but also immerse ourselves in political performances from the past. For our workshop today, we were tasked to analyze the speech of President ELPIDIO Quirino in the United States Congress using its details, composition, and
This is
its
speech by the
impact.
sixth President of the Philippines, ELPIDIO Quirino, at the United States Congress in August 9, 1949, was delivered for 2 minutes and 25 seconds in Washington, D.C., Capitol Hill, House of Representatives, Ways and Means Committee Room. Addressed to the United States House of Representatives, as well as the broader U.S. government and citizens, this speech promoted the continuance and strengthening of the diplomatic partnership between the U.S. and the Philippines, primarily through a show of gratitude for U.S. assistance after World War II under the Philippine Rehabilitation Act and Bill Trade Act, as well as a vow to defend democracy in Asia against communism. In present day, a video recording of the speech is available on the internet through the official Gazette YouTube channel.
So, what is the theme of the address? For us, the central theme of Quirino's speech is freedom and unity between the Philippines and the United States. He says in the line, "Your people and mine, by a fluke of destiny, have become partners in the most glorious adventure." So, for us, this line captures how he saw the two nations as bound by history, not through dependency, but through a shared mission of rebuilding and preserving freedom from the war. So he also emphasizes that my country is determined to succeed, showing that while he sought American support, he wanted the Philippines to stand strong on its own feet. So for us collectively, the speech reflects the Philippines' desire to heal from the war while playing an active role in defending democracy in Southeast Asia, especially against the spread of communism at that
Now,
time.
what
What is the tone of the address? For us, the tone of Quirino's address is hopeful and sincere. It carries deep gratitude, but also a quiet assertion of what independence is. When he says, "We have come out stronger, fortified in the blessings of democracy and freedom," he speaks not as someone who asks for aid, but as a leader affirming his people's resilience. So his voice balances respect with resolve, thanking the United States for its partnership, while subtly reminding them that the Philippines aims to build its own strength, that we will not never be dependent, as we should.
Based on the text of the speech, President Quirino creates a complex mood that blends urgent optimism with a clear sense of imminent danger and resolute determination. So first, we have optimism and pride. So the president is not speaking from a position of weakness, but instead, he creates a mood of pride in his nation's recovery. Then we have imminent danger and urgency, and this is the most powerful mood in the speech, wherein President Carino juxtaposes his nation's success with the dire threat surrounding it. Then we have the resolute determination and loyalty, where this speech is not a desperate plea, but it is a statement of resolve. And lastly, we have hopeful partnership, where the speech's conclusion shifts to a mood of hope and confidence, not in the Philippines alone, but in the U.S. Philippine partnership. So, in short, the president creates a mood of urgent optimism, and he presents the Philippines as a proud, successful nation that is fully prepared to fight for democracy, but urgently needs its greatest ally to help protect and develop it against the clear and present danger of communism. So the pacing of the address is deliberate, confident, and strategically escalating. It doesn't feel rushed. Rather, it builds momentum logically and emotionally from start to finish. And here's a breakdown of its pacing. So the speech begins at a measured formal pace. The president uses the first paragraph to establish humility and a personal connection, which makes the speech feel at home. And then the pacing quickens as he swiftly moves from the transition period to the titanic struggle of World War II, culminating in a powerful, fast paced declaration of loyalty, where he quoted that we are determined to carry on and to fight to the last man on the side of America. And then, subsequently, the pace becomes bold and confident in the middle section, where he confidently contrasts the Philippines' rapid three-year reconstruction with other bewildered nations. This section moves quickly to establish the Philippines as a strong, capable partner. As he approaches his main appeal, the pacing slows down to become highly deliberate and formal. He directly addresses the mightiest body of legislators to make his formal request for timely and effective cooperation. And, of course, the final paragraphs build to a strong, optimistic, and rhythmic conclusion. The speech ends with a long flowing sentence that builds to an uplifting climax towards describing the US Philippine partnership as something glorious. Overall, the pacing is controlled and effective. It builds from a respectful introduction to a proud summary of achievements, escalates with a sense of urgent purpose, and culminates in a direct, confident appeal for partnership. So, based on the speech provided, President Quirino presents his address from a masterful blend of all three rationales, the logical, emotional, and ethical, and they are mixed together to make his appeal as compelling as possible. So first, let's explain the logical rationale, or the it's in your interest argument. And this is the core of his political and strategic argument. So Quirino presents a clear logical case that supporting the Philippines is a smart, mutually beneficial decision for the United States. And this entails a cause and effect, where he argues that economic stability is the most effective weapon against totalitarianism. We also have the proof of competence, where he provides evidence that the Philippines is a good investment and not a drain on resources. And of course, the strategic interest, where he frames the partnership as a matter of the self interest from the side of the US. And then we have the emotional rationale, the we are family argument. This is where Kirina uses powerful emotional appeals to build a bond of empathy and shared sacrifice and pride. So, first, the appeal to shared sacrifice, where he evokes the fresh, painful memory of the World War II, where the two nations, the Philippines and the US, they fought and died together. And then the appeal to familiarity and pride, where he flatters the House in the US side and makes them feel a sense of paternal pride. And then third is the appeal to gratitude and humility, where he begins by expressing the mingled feelings of gratitude and humility, which respectfully acknowledges America's power and generosity, making his audience more receptive to his message. And lastly, we have the ethical or moral rationale, or the it's the right thing to do argument. And this rationale is built on the shared values of democracy and freedom. So here, Quirino argues that America has a moral obligation to support its own creation and the ideals it champions. So the creator's responsibility describes how he repeatedly reminds the US of its role in the existence of the Philippines, and then it translates into defending a shared way of life, where he frames the conflict not as a political squabble, but as a moral struggle for the democratic way of life.
So now let's go over the claims and contentions that the address supported and some evidences of it. So first, he emphasized that the Philippines and the United States share a commitment to freedom and democracy. So he supports this by reminding Congress that both nations bled with the rest of humanity, especially during the World War II. So this shows that their alliance was built on shared struggle and sacrifice. Well, this is controversial as US was a part of the colonization, but next, Quirino stresses that the Philippines needed continued US support for a post-war recovery, that we really needed help. So he recalls that the untold devastation of the country and the loss of more than 1,100,000 persons. So this makes his appeal for help grounded in truth and urgency. So when he says you will continue to extend them every possible support to succeed. So it's both a plea and a confident assertion that the Philippines will rise again with partnership. But it's like we really needed help in order to rise. So yeah,
Next,
that's
it
what
was
is said.
also claimed, we believe that it was claimed that the US Philippine partnership benefits not only both nations but the world at large. That's how significant it is. So Kirina explains that this alliance is for the preservation not only of freedom and prosperity but also of the peace of the world in our part of the globe. So he even describes it as a glorious adventure to the interest of the entire world. So, through these words, we believe that he elevates the partnership from mere diplomacy to shared responsibility. because it's not just about rebuilding the Philippines, it's about contributing to global peace after the war, after that bloody war. So his message carries pride, dignity, and as well as hope that the Philippines can be small in size yet significant in
So let's
purpose.
answer what action is the address calling on the audience to take. So, in his address, the president is essentially making one overarching request that the United States Congress provide active, continued, and comprehensive support to the new Republic of the Philippines. So, first is to provide timely and effective cooperation and continued support. He is making a direct appeal for tangible help. The phrase timely and effective cooperation suggests he is seeking immediate, practical, and legislative partnership from the Congress, and then continued support frames this as a long term commitment. He is reminding the U.S. that while the Philippines is determined to build on solid rock, it still needs assistance and guidance from its mother country to succeed. And then, second, actively partner with the Philippines to protect and develop its freedom. This request is actually twofold. First is for protection or security, and second is for the development or moreover in the economic aspect. And then third is to recognize that supporting the Philippines is in America's own strategic interest. This is Quirino's most persuasive political argument. He frames supporting the Philippines not as charity, but as a mutually beneficial and necessary glorious adventure. So now let's talk about the evidences justifying the actions promoted. So the president provides several key pieces of evidence to justify why the US Congress should take these actions or the actions I've discussed earlier. And first is the proven loyalty and shared sacrifice, or because we are a loyal ally. The evidence in the speech is, quote unquote, the Filipinos bled with the rest of humanity in that titanic struggle, or the World War II. We are determined to carry on and to fight to the last man on the side of America if freedom should ever again be menaced. And to explain this, he reminds America that the Philippines has already proven its loyalty in the most extreme test, or the World War II. This past sacrifice serves as a credible pledge for future loyalty, making the Philippines as a reliable partner worthy of support. Another one is a successful and stable partner, that we are a good investment. And the evidence in the speech is the Philippines has proven its capacity to bear our burdens by rebuilding rapidly after the war. And he counters any perception that the Philippines is a failed state or a bad investment in this evidence. This assures the Congress that any support given will be used effectively by a capable nation and it will not be wasted. And then, third, a bulwark against totalitarianism, that we are the frontline defense. So the evidence in the address is that the Philippines is actively working to contain and counteract the onrush of a totalitarian system, battering down the doors of our neighbors. And its justification is that this is his core geopolitical argument. He positions the Philippines as the frontline in the new Cold War in Asia. And by supporting the Philippines' economy, America is not just helping Filipinos, but it is building a wall against the spread of communism in the most distressed region, which is directly in America's strategic interest. Fourth evidence is a handiwork of American ideals, or our success is their success. And the evidence here is just where Quirino appeals to the House's pride and calls the Philippines as number one, America's original handiwork in the sphere of freedom in Asia, and number two, a new state that owes its existence to American wisdom and idealism. And Quirino frames the Philippines as the living show window of American style democracy. Its success would be a victory for American ideals on the world stage, and its failure would be a blemish on America's high mission. He is asking the Congress to protect its own handiwork. After all those points, it all leads us to the ultimate goal of the speech, with both parties recognizing each other as partners through the evidence of have become partners in the most glorious adventure in which it will be to your interest as well as to that to the entire world to prosecute towards increasing fulfillment. And that is all for this segment. Let's move on to the next.
For this segment, I'd like to talk about the overall effectiveness or impact of the speech. While the speech does elicit a mixed reaction given historical context, overall it is positive. In the speech, President Quirino talks proudly about the Philippines, discussing its quick recovery post World War II and highlighting it as an example of Filipino resilience. It also emphasizes the role of the Philippines as a bastion of democracy in Asia. However, the full transcript of the speech reveals the Philippines' continued dependence on the United States. Emotionally, the speech evokes feelings of triumph over the adversity faced by the country during World War II and hope for future collaboration with the United States. However, these are both undercut by regret and uncertainty pertaining to the independence of the Philippines. President Quirino even refers to the country as the handiwork of the United States, which undermines our sovereignty and independence. As for the audience's reaction, it was overall very positive, evidenced by the rounds of applause interspersed throughout its delivery. Given that it was delivered before the American House of Representatives, the speech expresses gratitude towards the American people, crediting them for the Independence Act and for providing the Philippines with many development opportunities.
I think it was clear from the presentation that former President Quirino's choice of words, ideas, and thoughts were nothing short of smart, intellectual, and tactical. Although it may be argued that some ideas were counteractive, the speech and its analysis showed great insights to the political status of the Philippines in its relevant time period. Thank you for listening.